So, as part of our weekly topic here, where I wanted to do a little group check in, we are finishing up week 6. You may be on time, you may be a little bit behind. That is totally fine. But the thing that most jumped out is what people were curious about was the concept of protein powder, how we use that, what are good options, how to choose it, when to use it, those kinds of things. So, we're going to jump into that and just really dive into protein powder. It's come up a few times, and I love that you're actually asking about it because it honestly tells me something pretty important. You're really trying to do this well, and you're paying attention to how much protein you're getting. So, you care about fueling your body in a way that supports your strength, supports your muscle, your recovery, and your long term health. Now, let me start with this. We talk about protein all the time. We know that this is not a complete meal. Something that only has protein does not have enough carbohydrate for energy, does not have enough fat for satisfaction and vitamin absorption, and as well as many other things. However, when we are trying to build muscle and maintain muscle, especially if you're in a deficit, then it is really important to get. So, protein powder can be a tool here. It's not required, it is definitely not superior to food, and it's not really a shortcut, but it is actually a convenient way that you can meet your protein targets, especially when life is busy. I know that, especially in graduate school, I made sure I had some protein powder at my desk so that when things got crazy and I didn't get home or bring as much of a lunch as I thought I would need, or we were longer in the office, I could just shake that up and know that I was doing well. So I even have some here at work too that I don't use very often, but is there when I need it. So, now as working professionals, maybe your parents, or maybe it's just tough for you to get enough real food to hit this, protein powder can be helpful. So we built the foundations first. If you've been paying attention, you know that we are focused on our whole foods, our structured meals, adequate total protein, strength training, and we've been learning a lot more about sleep and stress management. So supplements actually come last in that. But today we're going to cover number 1, do you need it? Which type makes sense for you? What is a safe choice? And how do you choose a good one? And then how do you decide if it's actually right for you? So number 1, do you actually need protein powder to build muscle or lose fat? No, you do not. Research consistently shows that total daily protein intake is what matters most for muscle growth and retention, not whether it comes from a powder or chicken. Now, that being said, this may be different if you have, my background was very much focused in sports nutrition, and that can look a little bit different there when you're trying to get 2 or 3 grams of protein per kilogram, because that is a very high level of training, and this is really, really helpful when it comes to that. But for active adults, when you're lifting, which is most of you, a good evidence-based range is around 1.6 to 2 grams per kilogram of body weight per day. And let me just grab my phone real quick and convert that over to per pound. It's usually going to be around, 1 or 0.75 to 1 gram per pound if you want to go that route. You do not have to go that high, but that higher end is where we do see maximal muscle protein synthesis benefits when you're resistance training. So keep in mind, if you're not really adding much resistance training, adding more protein is not necessarily going to result in more muscle gain. But the real question here is, can you hit your protein target consistently with whole food? If the answer is yes, great. You don't really need the powder. Just keep focusing on the quality of your meals and that you're getting adequate protein. If you're struggling all the time to meet that, protein powder can make it a little bit easier. So, for example, if breakfast is always rushed, or if you're traveling, if you don't want to cook more meat, if your appetite is low, or if you really just need something quick post strength training. So that convenience and consistency can be really, really helpful. So what are the types of protein that you might see, especially if you go into like a GNC? It can be really overwhelming, even for someone who has had some experience via the sports nutrition world with supplements. It's completely overwhelming. So there are 2 main types here that we're thinking about. We have animal-based which is typically whey or casein, which are both derived from milk, or plant-based, where we see pea, soy, rice, hemp, or just blends of plant-based protein powders. So whey protein, it's usually the gold standard, especially if there are not other additives here, because whey is really fast digesting. It's high in leucine, which is an amino acid that really helps with muscle protein synthesis. It is very well studied and it strongly stimulates that muscle protein synthesis, like I mentioned, because it is high in leucine. Now, whey is considered a really high quality complete protein, complete meaning that it actually has all of the essential amino acids within it. Um, and it has that in adequate amounts. And it scores really highly on protein quality measures. Whereas casein, it's actually a little more slow digesting, so think 6 or 8 hours, that provides sustainable amino acids, meaning making it really ideal for like pre-bedtime satiety and muscle repair. So it's also a complete protein, and like I said, that means the slower digesting means it's great like before bed. Plant proteins are a little bit more nuanced. So some plant proteins are lower in certain amino acids, like especially some of our essentially amino acids like lysine or methionine, but when you get a blend, like a pea protein and a rice protein, it can complement each other and create a complete amino acid profile. So, soy protein specifically has been shown in research to support similar strength and muscle gains when total protein intake is matched. So, one of the takeaways here is if daily protein is adequate, plant proteins can definitely work, especially if you have a good blend. The biggest functional difference often just comes down to that leucine content, the digestibility, and the total dose that you have to have. So they might require slightly higher serving sizes to hit those optimal leucine thresholds if you're really focused on muscle protein synthesis. But that might not be a major concern for you here. Now, safety and quality. This is something that some people don't actually always think about. This was drilled into us, especially in my college days, when we were told about how supplements are not regulated. And many athletes have been banned from sport because they were taking a supplement that actually had additives and other things that were not okay when it came to sport. And so they have third-party testing that can be used here. So supplements, like I said, are not regulated like medicine. So that what that means is that label claims can actually vary. Some products have been found to contain heavy metals like lead or cadmium, and protein content doesn't always match what's listed. I do have to say, if you're reading nutrition labels, there is a 20% give or take on those labels anyway. It looks like hard and fast numbers, but there is a little leeway there. So this is why third-party testing actually matters. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to see if I can share this here. Let me see. So you can see what some of these third-party testing places look like. Okay, there it is. So the one that I have been most familiar with here is NSF certified for sport. So you'll see this little blue mark here in the corner, NSF. So this is a third party testing. And if it's certified for sport, then it should have that on the label. But you can also look at certified products. So if I click here and I can actually go through and I can even browse by category. So let's say, uh, dietary supplements and product types. So let's just go for our protein. There it is. And we can browse here. So this is also great for other supplements if you're looking for just something that is third-party tested. And you can see a whole bunch. You can actually sort and look at it based on the brands that you want to look at. You can also see that there's USP certified. So oftentimes, like you'll see this on the Nature Made label because it's commonly tested here, but the USP is a helpful one. And then one that I'm less familiar with is the Informed Choice certification here. But those are a few you can actually take a look at and at least feel better that what the label says it has is going to actually be accurate. So you can trust that it's more accurate as far as the protein content, lower contamination risk, and fewer banned substances. And it's particularly important for plant-based powders because they actually are sometimes higher in heavy metal due to the soil contamination that can happen there. Also consider like GI discomfort. Your digestive tract may not do well with lactose, which is in whey concentrate, or sugar alcohols for some of those that are trying to create a really sweet blend without extra added calories in the form of added sugars. So sugar alcohols can be like upsetting to your stomach, artificial sweeteners or gums and thickeners. So if digestion is an issue, you can definitely consider a whey isolate. So a whey isolate just means that it's very isolated. It doesn't have all the extra stuff in it. You may have to add it to a smoothie that you add your own flavor to, but you know that it doesn't have the extra stuff. Focus on simple ingredients lists. And if you can, just get unsweetened versions, depending on how you plan to use it. If you're just going to shake it up with some water, that's pretty hard to stomach. But if you're throwing it in a smoothie, that's a great option. So how much should you use? Most research shows that muscle protein synthesis is maximally stimulated with about 20 to 40 grams of protein per serving, depending on body size. So I want to make sure that I recommend you use protein powder to supplement, not replace meals. And plus, if you remember, we've spoken about this. Sometimes if you are having a liquid meal, that actually stimulates our fullness signals less. So you may feel less satisfied with that. So no matter what those liquid calories are coming from, whether, it's a soda or coffee or even a good quality, liquid meal replacement, you may not feel quite as satisfied with that. So usually one scoop for most supplements provides 20 to 30 grams of protein. But like I said, we don't want to skip our whole food nutrients. And it doesn't contain the micronutrients, it doesn't contain the fiber, it doesn't contain the satiety factor of whole foods. So some people do like the idea, if they often are on the go at work and they don't want to think about it, there are options for meal replacements. That is a totally different discussion, but don't think of this as a meal replacement when you think of protein powder. So some questions that you can think of when it comes to knowing if this is right. Are you consistently under your protein target? If yes, consider it. Does convenience really matter to you right now? If mornings or maybe work lunches are chaotic, maybe yes. Like for me, I ended up having clients and work go through lunch longer than expected, and I felt a little overly hungry by the time I was able to eat around 1:30 or 2. And it would have been nice to have a little drink. I didn't actually think about that until now. Do you tolerate dairy well? If yes, the whey isolate is a great option. If no, a plant blend or a soy can be helpful. Does the product have third-party testing? If not, I would probably just pass just because I don't like to risk it. And I want to spend money on something that is worth it. Does it fit your budget? There really is no benefit to buying the most expensive powder if a simpler one works. And if you're hitting protein consistently without it, you don't really need it. I do want to mention a couple of everyday ways that you can add protein without protein powders. So we've talked about the importance of protein, but there are many things that I do here in my everyday life that I want to make sure I explicitly mention. So there are a few ways that you can do this. Number one, some ways you can boost protein with dairy or eggs. Extra egg whites or whole eggs to omelets and scrambles and pancakes or muffins or casseroles can be easy. I use Greek yogurt all the time. I always buy a plain Greek yogurt, and I don't mind a full fat version of that, but I substitute Greek yogurt for sour cream or regular yogurt, especially like if I want to make a dressing that has that, or sauces or dips, or you can even add it to some baked goods. Mixing cottage cheese into smoothies or using it as a creamy base in pasta sauces or snack bowls. This may sound odd, but I sometimes will use like a dip. I don't know, just a standard dressing dip, and I might mix a little bit of cottage cheese or Greek yogurt into that dip, and then have it with some veggies because it adds a little bit of that protein and it cuts down on some of the additives in the dressings. And then there are options that are ultra filtered dairy milks that are really high in protein, or soy milks. And you can add those to things like your oatmeal or coffee or smoothies to raise protein without higher volume. So ultra filtered can be hugely helpful. Like a Fairlife is a common brand for those. Now, what are some dairy free ways that you can add more protein? Beans and legumes, black beans, lentils, chickpeas, edamame. Add them in salads, add them in soups, add them in chili or tacos or pasta or grain bowls. I love having chickpeas and black beans, the low sodium cans available, so I can add them to all kinds of things. In fact, we've even added them to Hamburger Helper on the days that we ate Hamburger Helper because there is no time or there is no thought. That stuff happens, but you can help boost it and make it a little better. Quinoa is a grain. It is primarily a carbohydrate, but it is a higher protein grain, and you can use that as a side or a base instead of rice. Nuts and seeds, they do have fat content, but they are really great quality, really nutritious. So think hemp, chia seeds, pumpkin seeds, almonds. I love sliced almonds on all kinds of things. You can sprinkle these on yogurts or smoothies or salads or veggie bowls. Tofu, tempeh, and soy products, they are great adding into a lot of things like stir fries or soups or wraps or salads for more of a non-dairy option. Bone broth is a higher protein broth or higher protein liquids. You can actually use those for cooking rice and grains and soups instead of water to add extra grams of protein. Now, some hacks, little meal prep ideas here. We're already thinking about protein-rich meals like a lentil chili or bean soup or chicken and bean curries, and freeze these for later. You can also swap ingredients. Like I mentioned, Greek yogurt instead of sour cream in recipes, higher protein pastas. I love these. They are usually made from chickpeas or lentils. Keep in mind, some brands do disintegrate if they are kept in the fridge for too long. They don't quite hold up as well. And then quinoa, like I said, in place of rice, or adding nut butters to oatmeal or smoothies or toast. Keep in mind that nut butters, like peanut butter, they do have protein, but they are primarily a fat source. So still keep in mind that you can't just dump the whole thing and think you're good to go. Keep that portion in a reasonable amount. So I hope that these are helpful to you and that you have a little better idea on what you can do and how you can choose some protein supplement or protein powders if supplementation feels like the right choice for you. Let me know your thoughts, and if you'd like any more information on how to handle this and take care of it. But otherwise, I think we are good to go.